What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Better You Project, optimizing health, hormones, and aesthetics. And today I have a super fun guest that I cannot wait to get into the details. I've got Cindy Eckert. She is the CEO and founder of Sprout Pharmaceuticals, made history by bringing Addyi, the first and only FDA-approved drug for hyposexual desire disorder, HSDD, in women, also known as low libido, to the market. 2015, Eckert sold Sprout Pharmaceuticals for a record-breaking $1 billion. She later fought to reacquire the company and reclaim control of Addyi to continue her mission of breaking down barriers in women's sexual health and fighting for gender equity in healthcare. You can understand why I want her on this podcast then if you've been listening to this episode. She is, as a celebrated entrepreneur and fierce advocate for women's sexual health with over 25 years of experience in sexual wellness and pharmaceuticals. Eckert's impact extends far beyond pharmaceuticals. She is known for her bold approach to business, commitment to fighting gender biases in medicine, her fierce advocacy for women's health and innovation. She has made the little pink pill a personal lifestyle and has no plans to stop challenging inequalities in healthcare, especially ahead of Addyi's 10-year anniversary this past August. That's amazing.
Yes.
Congratulations.
We just celebrated. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
It's been such an incredible ride.
Yeah, I can't imagine you've done all the things. So Cindy, talk about why, like, your background, like why sexual health, why?
Lexi, I have to tell you, when you were reading that, I actually really do have pink boxing gloves on my desk, and I wanted to be like boxing the air.
Yeah.
So thank you for the incredible introduction. And that's to get to know a little bit about me, is like, why don't women have choices when it comes to our sex lives? I mean, that's the genesis. So a little bit that you didn't cover in my background. Not everybody knows this. The first company I built was a men's sexual health company. So I was a little bit of the woman in pink, and I love the pink blazer today, by the way, like the woman in pink in the sea of blue pills, building this. And I loved the category. I loved actually what we were doing to improve the quality of men's lives. We think of even ED as a leading health indicator in men. We take it seriously. It informs a lot. And I'm sitting there, and I can take you back, honest to God, to the moment in time. It was 2010. I was at the Sexual Medicine Society meeting. There is one of those. It's like the kind of premier medical conference for the big researchers in sex. And they put up brain scan imaging of women who were struggling with their libido. So they basically took women and they described it as, you know what, something's different. Like, I don't think about it anymore. Like, I'm not as receptive. I want to. Like, it's as if the switch went off, right? And then they took women who were like, look, I'm not on all of the time, but like nothing's changed. I'm happy with my libido. They put them both into MRIs. They exposed them to erotica. Their brains lit up totally differently. Wow. And I really was standing in a room. This like goes up on the screen. And by the way, this is research that has been repeated all over the world. This isn't a single study. This is tons of studies. And what we were seeing is that this woman's brain activated in response to sexual cues. This woman's brain didn't. It was betraying her. Like, it wasn't just when she was saying the switch was out, she was really feeling what was going on neurochemically in her brain. And it was like lightning struck me. How can it be? At that time, we had 26 FDA-approved treatment options for men, and we didn't have a single one for women. And now, here we see it, it's biology. So that's what fired me up and set me on this path. I sold off my business in men to tackle getting the first ever product approved for women for them to lead more satisfying sex lives.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's such a great story. I'm like going to have to look up that study and really kind of dig into some of the neurobiology under that. So roll it back. So you sold Sprout for $1 billion and then why fight to get it back? It's kind of like when people get divorced and then they're like, oh, you know what? We're actually going to get remarried again. Just kidding.
Well, you can imagine, like, we're dialing it back. We just said we celebrated our 10-year. We're the pioneers. Like, culture wasn't quite ready for us. They didn't know what to do. When we went out there, I mean, it was new science. It was spectacular discovery. but like culture is very puritanical in talking about sex and sex for women. It's just, again, I don't even know that we're conscious of it. It's just embedded in our culture. And so we sold this, and it was like my dream come true, Lexi. I mean, here it was like, my goal with this has always been to change this conversation, to give women real legitimate solutions for a medical issue, and to like make it accessible and affordable. And that's what this big company that bought us really afforded me. And then they never launched it. Never. So I was crushed, like as the founder on the sidelines, and there's why they didn't. Like, I've got the conspiracy theorists who
Sure.
say why they didn't. I think the truth is, in their business, they had some complexities. It's now the company that does Bausch and Lomb. They're a big company. They had other big products. They had some of their own internal things, and it was the last thing in the door, and they just never launched it. And so I sat on the sidelines, and I'm like, women can't get it. Like, people are sending me emails, and they're like, oh my God, I can't even get this anywhere. And that wasn't what this was all about. So I went back to them. Ended up saying, give it back. We negotiated that. I got it back. And now we've stood it up, and women go on it every single day. So like, this is now, the mission realized, but I wasn't going to let it just sit on the shelf.
Yeah. I think too, and I can't remember exactly when, but I think initially you almost had to have a certification to even prescribe
Oh
it.
yeah.
I remember
Yes.
when I started in functional medicine, looking at root cause and
Yes.
how to help women and getting testosterone back up. And I'm like, oh, this
Yes.
would fit perfect in my practice. And then I remember going through I'm like, shit, why do you gotta have a certification? Like, is this like high level, like Accutane, where you got to have checks and balances kind of thing? So it was very exciting to see that requirement went away.
Completely.
Any idea why that was there?
This is such a loaded question, Lexi. I love it. It's so, I think about how things have changed in the last 10 years. And like your point, it sort of just got quietly walked back. FDA undid that entire requirement. And I think it's fear, right? I think that the world was fearful of like this whole category. Like, it wasn't specific to the drug. The drug was studied in 13,000 women. It's a prescription medication. Let's set the table for everyone listening. Like, this is a prescription medication. It requires seeing a doctor. We understand through clinical trials what the benefits are. We also understand what the risks are and the side effects. Like, that's great. In my world, that goes in the plus column, right? Like, I'm a very science nerd.
Legit.
But in my body, like, give me the evidence. But I think in that regard, we tend to, with prescription medications, like, we worry about widespread use at the beginning. You're like, oh, and so you kind of like make it really hard for everybody to get it. But now here's 10 years on the market. Here's 10 years of safety data in the market. Forget all the safety data as well from clinical trials. And like, you just let go, if you will, of that stranglehold. I think over time, with the confidence that comes, and like, it was the first of its kind. It was the first in this category. So while I look back on it thinking it was really probably an unfair burden, I also sit in the thrill that like, we have 10 years on the market, and we understand like that none of those initial like worries came to fruition.
Right. It's kind of one of those things. It's like when the FDA puts a little bit more regulation on how you can prescribe it. Like, again, if I wanted to prescribe back then, when I really wanted to do it, there were certifications like, okay, do I have time to do all that? Think about controls like testosterone for women. Like, it's a Schedule 3. You got to have a DEA. So it's like, when there's these little bit of barriers in front, and healthcare providers, they have enough crap going on between seeing patients, lab values, making sure we've hit certain metrics. Luckily, I don't take insurance in my practice, but I can't imagine trying to deal with insurance, So it's just a lot of hoops that providers have to jump through in order to get women what they freaking need.
No kidding. It's like, I mean, you think it's
Yeah.
lopsided, right? Those products that have barriers like seem to all fit into one category. And we do, like, we create a lot of obstacles for women to get access. Let's see, you might not even know this. My first company was a testosterone company. So the male company that I ran had a long acting testosterone product that was FDA approved. And like, it's just, these things, like, we sort of make determinations broadly, right, in medicine, or even as regulatory authorities of medicine, about like, well, what matters and what doesn't.
Right.
Well, go talk to the person struggling with it and ask them if it matters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's particularly, we're going to talk about that, I know, today. But when it comes to sex, like, we tell jokes about it at the cocktail party. It's late night fodder. It's easy because it's kind of a blush conversation to like trivialize it. And yet, right, go talk to somebody who is struggling with their sexual health. Something is going wrong. These women with their brains, literally their neurochemistry betraying them, and they're unhappy about it. And you ask them if it matters. When I first started going through, I'll never forget this. When I first started like going through this, and I was such a champion, and like, I was ruffling some feathers with people who weren't sure how they felt talking about this. What people would say is they'd be like, "Oh, Cindy, nobody's going to lose their life from this." And I would say, go talk to them, because they're losing their life as they know it.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't get to decide. Like, we are obligated to show that something works, that it's effective, that it's safe, like all of those things. But then decision making really gets turned over to a patient and their provider, and they determine really together what is right for them. Anyway, I'll step down off that soapbox.
No, it's incredible to see how many options and how many physicians write for Viagra or
Yeah.
tadalafil. No problem. No
Yes.
problem, right? It's
No
even good for your heart health. It's great for prostate, right?
Right.
But shit, don't
Yeah,
give
for
nobody no
sure.
Addyi. Like, it's
The permissiveness of that too, and
Yeah.
even labeling, right? When we know that if you combine those products with the nitrate, it results in potentially death. Like, these are rare and unlikely outcomes, but they are outcomes we know from clinical trials. And so sometimes you see like labeling differences in medications, and you wonder, like, well, wait, how much do we value the thing that it's treating? And it's really sort of at the heart of this for me over 10 years. And I do think it's changing. So I want to be optimistic about it. But at the beginning of this, like, we didn't place a lot of value on women having a more satisfying sex life. We had all the reasons why they weren't. Already we decided. And I think it was so tone deaf to the actual science. So, science often leads the way in understanding. And I think it's led a huge way in the last 10 years.
Yeah. So Addyi often gets compared to Viagra, but you often
Yeah.
push back on that. What would you say is like
Mm.
the biggest misconception when it comes to maybe the mechanism of how Addyi differentiates from like a PDE5 inhibitor?
Yeah. Okay. Sex Ed 101, everybody. Ready? Women are brain flow, men are blood flow. I mean, I'm going to be overly simplistic about it, but really, this is our biggest sex organ. This isn't about directed blood flow to the genitals for us. Like, desire, and even for men, desire turns on in the brain, like in that reward center of the brain. And so I understand why press said it, right? It was a watershed moment, the first product for women in the way, that Viagra was for men. But I do think it also set up this like idea that the male construct of sex, like, Addyi is not about like, and I also don't think really the patients of Addyi, are pursuing it to say like very specific to the act, right? It's about that headspace. It's about thinking about it. It's spontaneous thoughts and fantasies. It's about being receptive to sex. Like, it's different. It's that desire center of the brain. So it's a fundamental difference. And if you don't understand it and you think that it's like something to take for an act, like a discrete event, boy, you'll be disappointed. It doesn't mean that the discrete events don't increase. They do, right? We had to measure that in clinical trials. And like when you have that event, is it satisfying to you? We had to measure that in clinical trials. But like it's really so different. And I think what it bothers me the most about it is that it's really sex on very male terms that I mean, even that they call us female Viagra, where the hell is the male Addyi?
Mhm.
Right? I mean, it's like we talk about sex only in one kind of language. And I think it leaves women in a lot of ways out of the conversation, or like they reject the conversation because they don't like, it doesn't resonate with them.
Right, right. Yes. So in consultation with patients, I often say, this is how Addie's a little bit different. Men have a plumbing issue, women have an electrical issue. And so Addie works more
Right.
specifically on the electrical issues, which are typically going to be like neurotransmitters. I think one of the biggest misconceptions I see, and I treat hundreds of women for years and years and years, is that there's so much emphasis on, well, if I just get my testosterone up, right? And I'm like, listen, sis, there is so much more to your libido and your desire and your, like, I had one woman say, I'm actually kind of trying. I'm like, good for you, you know? And I tell them, I have women where their testosterone can get high, and we do pellets, and I've seen women as high as 200, and their libido is still garbage. So what that tells me is, I can get your testosterone up all day long, but if there is a problem on the neurotransmitters, on the electrical, on the mindset behind your sexual health, it's not going to get better. So why I love adding Addyi to our practice is because we're focusing on vaginal rejuvenation, right? We're making sure that elasticity and tone and blood flow and collagen and all that richness down there is lubricated and has the ability to stretch, right? Nobody likes paper cuts in their vagina. And so if women are dry as the Sahara Desert down there, that's what's going to feel like. Right. So then we optimize their testosterone, their estrogen, their progesterone. And now we've got this beautiful addition to, the toolbox, so to speak. And to be honest with you, and we do all kinds of things. We do oxytocin, we do PT-141, we do a lot of peptides. Why I actually like Addyi a little bit more than like a PT-141. And again, I do prescribe it. I have women who it works really well for, is PT-141 tends to cause quite a bit of nausea. And there's nothing worse than a libido killer than, oh, I feel like I'm gonna throw. The mood has left me, kind of thing. So, all right, So let's break it down just a little bit more in detail. When someone is getting,
can I just compliment you, Lexi, on that? That is such an important, what you just said, like the toolbox of this, right? Like that that's what's so important here. And even when you said that on testosterone, like I said, my first company was testosterone. It was the FDA-approved testosterone pellet called Testapel. And like, I do think we a bit over index on sex with T, like having been in that space. And I'm saying that even we promoted to men, the product was indicated for men, but like in essence, sometimes you come in asking for T around sex, but you come back talking about other things, right? You talk about that muscle fat balance. You talk about like some of those other things. And there's like a complementary, if you will, like, again, working on that neurochemistry in the brain, I think is such a additive factor to that. And what's beautiful about this is that it doesn't have to be one size fits all, right? It can be P141. Like it can't, it's this toolbox that we don't have to really help people in this space.
Absolutely. Like I feel like so many women get discouraged when they're on testosterone and their levels come back good. It's almost like the wind got out of their sails. I'm like, whoa, what did I miss? Like, we're not done here. We're literally just getting started, right? It's like we got to build the foundation, and then we get to start, putting the walls up and putting the drywall up and picking out the shutters and doing all those things, right? So talking about diagnosing HSDD, I think it's kind of comical a little bit, because it's like, there are certain criteria, but it has to bother you. So if a woman has a shitty libido and it's like, I don't really care, well, you don't have HSDD. Like that's what's kind of comical to me. It's like, you've got, low sexual desire, this doesn't interest you, but you're cool with it. Okay, you don't have HSDD. Like, how stupid is this diagnosis?
Right.
Just seems very.
I think it's Yeah.
you know.
It just leaves so much room for like chalking it to emotion, I think, too, which is so unfair to women. I think in medicine, it's so easy to like just view a female patient in front of you as like somebody completely rooted in emotion. And we sometimes forget she also is a biological being. And like that's, I think, what contributes to a lot of the like overlooking something that's so obvious. I would argue that if I'm a woman and I'm talking to you about my libido, or you've put like a single question on your intake form that says like, are you happy with your sex life? And they check it, they're raising their hand because they've been conditioned to really not talk about this, if you will. And here's what's crazy in that. Again, I go back to this, like the cocktail party joke about sex versus like what we really know scientifically about sex. I was fascinated. I'm going to send it to you. I was just looking at this study that they started in the 30s at Harvard, and they followed thousands and thousands of patients, and they were basically looking at like what are the key indicators of health at an older age. And what was incredible to me is the state of your relationship in midlife at 50 is the single biggest indicator of your mental and physical health at the age of 80. Like, this is what's crazy. Sex is health.
Yeah.
Like in so many ways, this is a health related issue. This promotes mental health, physical health. So this like idea that you go back to, I think in that diagnosis, there's also a bit of like a trivialization of it, right? As opposed to us like looking at sexual health for what it really is. And you know this firsthand with like patients you treat. Fix this problem for someone and see how they come back to you.
Yeah.
See how they change like so much of what they're suffering through in like other areas. Like once things go wrong in the bedroom, I think they transcend it in so many ways. But yeah, good. The diagnosis is, I mean, to your point, because you asked me the question, it's really, I think it's more of, were you once happy with your drive? Has that changed? And has that change been persistent? Right? Like it's not isolated to something. And then, of course, in your clinical, you're going to think about like, is it because of the secondary to this medicine? Are they talking about a lot of relationship drama? Like whatever that is, like you're going to understand that quickly. But like in essence, the fact that we don't even sit in front of a female patient and go, she is biologically wired to have sex drive is like the biggest aha moment if we could just tell ourselves that when we were sitting across from her.
Why do you think like the conversation is changing? So you just had this 10-year anniversary, right? And I'm sure you follow a lot of the stuff, crazy stuff in women's health, right? We had the M Factor documentary come out. We had the FDA with Marty McCary and the black box warning coming off of estriol. It's almost like the revolution of like females. It's like winter is coming kind of thing. And so you've been in this industry and in this world a lot longer than I have, and way more than probably most practitioners listening to this podcast. Why, Cindy? Why do you think all of a sudden? Do you think just women just like have had enough shit and we're like ready to like just take on? Do you think it's a different generation? Because I have some theories. But I'm curious to know
I love it. Okay,
what you think. Why?
Yeah.
Why now? 2025. Why now?
Okay. So here's my theory. You know how they always say when they say somebody's an overnight success story and they're like, yeah, they're like a 15-year overnight success story if you really look back. I think what's been happening behind the scenes is we've been laying the bricks and the foundation. Like I think about the conversations I have today with the FDA versus the 10 years was our anniversary of approval. Like we started it before that, like 15 years ago in the room. The conversation I was having is very different. And I think there have been subtle shifts happening, right? Like once somebody says something out loud and challenges it, I like to think like we by no means would take all the credit because there's so many incredible women who are out there working on this. But like we challenged conventional thinking on this in a way. And we started doing that 15 years ago. And once somebody says something out loud, other people say it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And like the heroes of this story in my mind are like folks like you that are like carrying the flag, right? And you're making women aware of this. Like it always was there. The problem was always there, but the awareness threshold has so massively shifted, whether it's the documentary M Factor or like, bravo, Dr. McCary, bravo for having this open forum to discuss the fact that the black box on vaginal estrogen is misleading and outdated, period, because it's a barrier for women to get it. Like, I think there have been cultural forces like moving us this way for a long time, but it finally broke.
Yeah.
Like it finally broke. And I think it's at the hands of women. Women are sick of being dismissed around things that matter to us. And like, we want to live our best lives in midlife and beyond.
Sure. No, I completely.
Okay, tell me your theory.
So I have a little bit of a theory now. So I'm in my 40s. Okay, so I'm 41.
Yeah.
So I'm what they call like a geriatric millennial, right? So in my generation is we were raised and supported by mothers who wanted us to go forward, go to college, get it, get a high paying job, be the CEO, do all these things because they didn't. So for us, we're like humming along, doing our thing. And all of a sudden we don't feel very good. And we start to see the unjustness in our very male dominated medical system. And we're like, well, screw that. Like fucking no more. Like we've got to do something. So I think it's now the people who are driving the healthcare medical decisions for families, for parents, for themselves. Like we don't have we're CEOs. We don't have time to feel like crap. So we have the dollars to like make shit happen at this point. And I think that has a lot to do with it too. Now, again, my theory could be out of left field. It's like, just calm down. But I do think, because when I go to these conferences and people come up to me at the end, and many of them are retired GYNs, and they're like, God, I wish someone like you was around when I was younger. Or I wish my mother had a provider like you when she was younger, because I don't think she would have suffered as much as she did. So I think it's that.
Can we shout out providers like you though? Like, honest to God, this is the real revolution. This is the truth though, Lexi. Like, this is the real revolution of like giving a shit, caring for women, really having these conversations. I think it makes so much. I love that. I love that whole idea. And my whole Instagram feed, I feel like, are these incredible practitioners like you. And I just sit in my office. I'm like, yes. I love watching it because I just think you're not accepting less than.
Yes, absolutely. So earlier this year, I actually got asked to do a filming for like a documentary called Innovations in Medicine. And a big part of it was talking about personalization specifically for women's health. And then I actually recently got asked to be on a testosterone documentary for discussing testosterone in women. So like it's getting out, like there's a glimmer of hope, So
that's right.
Talking about Addyi, who on label is it for? Who are the people that is
premenopausal women?
Yes.
Yeah. So today our indication in the US is for premenopausal women. So premenopausal women with HSDD. I'm very excited that we've gotten priority review for FDA to consider expanding our label to include women who've gone through menopause. That decision is not yet made, but we have put that press release out. And this is like that very thing we were just talking about, Lexi. Like, I deal with a lot of the same people at the FDA that we started with a long time ago. Some have changed. It's been many years. But like watching that difference, to get priority review status is a thing. Like, you actually have to be considered something that would address like an important unmet need. Like, this advance would be really meaningful to the market. Like, look at that. That in and of itself, like that recognition, I think says it's not only a medical achievement. If we came out with this, this would be the first thing for HSDD, indicated for women who've gone through menopause. but it's also cultural recognition. Like it really is a sign of the time. Like in what we were just talking about, like this is a sign of the times, which I love. You know, we are already, we're approved also in Canada, and we're for pre and post in Canada. So we're really excited about that label,
Right.
you know, potentially in the US. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
We'll see if we get it, but we're very excited about the data that we submitted to FDA, and just in the difference in the conversation we're having this time around.
Absolutely. So some other things to consider because of the mechanism of how it works. Can women take it with SSRIs, hormone
That's
replacement?
so important.
Yeah. So how would
Such
one
an important question. Yeah.
counsel women on that?
Yeah. So listen, I always say leave it to your doctor, and I shouldn't be giving this medical advice. I want to make sure I always fair balance in that regard. But it was an absolute condition of approval that we could co-use safely with SSRIs. So we have the study. That study has been published. Actually, a little bit of fun of the origin story of Addyi. You know, drug discovery is fascinating, right? Like Viagra was a blood pressure medication being studied, and then it had this really interesting side effect of directed blood flow. Like Addie's not all that dissimilar. Lots of drugs, actually, in this regard. And so Addie was being studied as a mood drug, as an antidepressant. And in phase 2, what they observed was this positive effect on sex. And so typically we know that like SSRIs, actually one of their side effects is they decrease libido. And so in clinical trials, you have to look, if you're studying something on mood, of like how much does it harm your sexual function, and all of Addie's scores went the other way. Like it's unique. That's why it's like a one of one, the way it works. And it's why they changed the course of study to look at that specifically. So Addie's a mood drug itself. Addie's a mood drug that, you know, just has a particular effect on the sex center of the brain. So for hormones, I'm an all of the above. But you know, there are products you shouldn't use this with too. We have a complete list of those on our website, you know, for healthcare professionals to see. But you know, generally, like in midlife, yeah, you know, we see a lot of combination with other therapies that patients are on.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're a patient of our practice and you're listening, this can be used alongside of many of the other things that we do for our patients. PT-141, oxytocin, hormone replacement, whatever form that we do, you know, shots, pills, Kaisertrax, pellets, whatever. Um,
Yeah,
what was the other one I was going to say? Shots. So we did a special in August because it was my birthday month, and
yeah,
I really wanted to get a lot of women just invigorated, and the feedback, and it's been just a couple weeks, has already been good. I know it takes about a good, and correct me if I'm wrong, like 6 weeks
yes.
to really kind of notice the Addyi impact. But I can't tell you, Cindy, how many portal messages I've gotten from women like, is it too soon for this to work? And I'm like, I
That's
mean, I
good.
don't,
I
I
love
don't
it.
know. I mean, like, you
Yeah,
go with it, girl. So
yeah,
yeah, I think it's been great. Can you talk a little bit about the impact on sleep? Because the
yeah.
feedback has been really fascinating.
Okay, that's good. All right. One, just on that, you know, when we talk about this mechanism, it's exactly as you said. It takes Addie some time to build in your system. Like once you get out of this like Addie's female Viagra idea, right? And you understand Addie's a mood drug, it works on brain chemistry, it has an effect on that sex. You recognize, like, just like a GLP-1, if I started it, right? Like it's going to take me some time. In clinical trials, we saw a separation from placebo already at 4 weeks. So I'm not surprised that some of your patients are saying it sooner, but I wouldn't want them to be discouraged if they
Right.
hadn't seen it yet. Like, I think it's like percolating, like even the things you expect, like the first thing I hear about sleep. So I want to talk about that, but also like, I can't tell you how many times I'm standing at a conference and somebody comes up and they're like, I had the best sex dream, or like
Yeah.
it's things like that. And it's not, when you know how it works, you're like, yeah, that makes total sense. It's that part of your brain that you're like thinking about it, fantasy around sleep. So sleepiness is one of our top 3 side effects. It's actually why you take Addie daily at bedtime, to mitigate that sleepiness. We did a study next day. We actually did like a morning driving study to see, like, were you groggy? And actually, we didn't see any of that like impairment. So no like hangover effect, if you will. But, Addyi makes you sleepy and it's a side effect. Sometimes I think like this whole culture has gotten side effects wrong. Like we all are like, oh, a side effect. And my version is wait, like a side effect means it's been studied. We know what's going to potentially happen, so you can plan for it. And sometimes side effects are benefits to certain
Right.
people, right? Like, you don't put them on for a side effect, but its benefit is in the eye of the beholder in a way, right?
Mhm.
And so some people report that sleep is a positive for them,
Right.
but it is a side effect, and it's something to expectation set with patients.
Absolutely. Can you talk about like if ladies are going out and they're having some drinks, what do they need to know
Yeah.
about skipping their Addyi dose?
Yeah, if you have like this is about again, like I feel like this is also so heightened around Addyi and alcohol. Oh my gosh, because it's for sex. And I just want to like have everybody. This is good, thoughtful, common sense language. So if you've got anything working on neurochemistry and you're going to potentially cause sleepiness or something, once I combine other things that might also work there and cause sleep, you want to be thoughtful and cautious about that. So in essence, like we did all of these different studies with alcohol that became like as if it's a bad thing, like it's quite a good thing. We understand if you take a lot of alcohol close in time to Addyi, you're going to compound that sleepiness effect, right? So if you've been out with the girlfriends for like bachelorette party, probably skip your Addyi that night, because if you've had 3 or more drinks close in time when you take it at bedtime, skip the dose that night.
Mhm.
And that language is not dissimilar to a lot of other labels that are out there. I mean, heck, Tylenol says if you have 3 or more drinks, don't take your Tylenol. Like this is like common sense language, but for us, it's about like how much you drink, how close in time to when you take Addyi.
Perfect. Yep. So sleepiness and then just being mindful about alcohol. Are there any other major side effects, Cindy, that you think are worth mentioning?
Our top 3 are sleepiness, dizziness, nausea. Like that's
Oh,
our most common. In our clinical trials of like the commons, less than 2% of women discontinued our clinical trials due to any side effects. So it's generally well tolerated. But you know what? If a patient isn't going to tolerate it, they're going to know soon. Like they're
mhm,
going to know right away. And like if they, don't like it, they won't stay on it. I mean, I
mhm,
think that's what I would say. You've got, other things are if somebody's got like hepatic impairment,
mhm.
they're not for us.
Yeah.
Um, and that's not typical in our population or anything else, but it's just something to be mindful of. And all of this again is like listed,
Right.
on our website so people can see and doctors know whether or not the patient is appropriate. But no, there's other than taking it daily at bedtime, I mean, that's like my most common sense takeaway for this, and understanding that it's going to take some time to build in your system to work. Once I've got those expectations right, um, you know,
Yeah.
it's exciting to hear what patients have to say.
Where, Cindy, in the clinical trials, do you feel like a majority
Yeah.
of the women notice the benefit? Like 8 weeks, 10
Well,
weeks?
we yeah, so it continues to climb 8 weeks, like you should know where you're gonna be at 8 weeks, right?
Mhm.
Like that separation was already statistically significant at 4, but at 8 weeks, like it had even gotten bigger. And I think it's adjustment, we should think about some of the social factors, which is like sometimes you're putting a patient on this that hasn't been having a lot of sex with their partner. Like, right? Sex has kind of left the equation. And in a way, like they've already caught a little relationship dance that avoids sex. And so they get on this and it like takes a minute until even the partner's like, wait a minute, what? They're receptive, like, oh my God, we're gonna have date night again. I think that's really true. Even it's funny, a lot of our patients, this won't surprise you, are like recently divorced. They're getting back out there. They may have come out of a sexless marriage. Like a little bit, they're waking up to it. Like I mean, I have a girlfriend who told me, I was on Addyi and I wasn't sure. And then all of a sudden I was watching this movie and the sex scene came on and I was like, ooh, like I'm turned on.
Yeah.
Is that Addyi? And I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, that's your brain.
Yeah.
Like that's the drive center of your brain responding. So
Yes.
I think that's part of
Yeah.
it too with patients.
We have a couple patients that divorced, sexless marriage, last 2 decades, had
Yeah.
kids, they're all raised. And they come in
Yeah.
for testosterone pellets, an O shot, a Mona Lisa touch, a wing lift. So a wing lift, Cindy,
Yeah.
is where we mix Restylane Lift with a little PRP and we inject it in the labia majoris to give a little
Oh,
fluff and fold, and then get them
yeah.
on some Addyi. And so one of my patients goes, "Oh, I'm here to rotate the tires, change the oil, change the wipers."
That's great. I love
Yes,
it. That's
yes,
good. I love that, Lo. Like
yeah,
even in our own ads, we have one with like, so women get like, it's kind of a get ready with me. And she's like getting ready. And she's like, anybody else, like, how do you feel about dating in later life? And she's like, I'm so excited because
yeah,
she's in charge of her like
yeah.
sexual agency and like she values that for her life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all of this is great. And I think Addyi is great. I think pairing it with, a good foundation of hormone optimization. The one
Yes.
thing that I really want listeners to understand though is that if you are in a shitty relationship, the Addyi didn't fail you. Unfortunately, you got to work on that relationship, which, there's
Yeah.
an effort that also has to be made there as well. And I'm sure you saw that too when you worked in the testosterone industry is my testosterone's not working. My libido's crap. I'm like, well, it's not going to take the garbage out for you and get your kids to soccer so you can get home in time. Like I'd love that if it did it too. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, like,
You.
I think that's so foundational is you got to have a good relationship. And not only
Yeah.
that, like men need to be told what to do, in many
Yeah.
ways. And so I think sometimes women will be shy. And I'm like, you've been married to the same person for like 40 years. I
Yes.
think the ship has left the thing there. And so like,
The
let's get,
port.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
Mhm.
I've even had conversations with patients on preferences in vibrators because like they're like, I don't even know what kind I need. I'm like, well, let's start small and like work our way up here. But
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
we just need to be open. We as healthcare providers need to be
Yeah.
open. And if you're not educated, listen to podcast episodes like this. Follow the Pink Lady. I'm sure she's
Yeah.
got some great stuff. I know there's an organization called Ishwish, and they do a lot of
Yes.
education. So like it's time.
Absolutely right.
It's time to help our patients,
Yes.
specifically our women, to give them options and normalize the conversation around sexual health.
That's right.
Because I think it's
And by
time.
the way, like on that, Lexi, you and I are the same person. I'm always like, look, if you think that taking this is going to make him empty the dishwasher, I'm going to disappoint you, right? Like it's exactly as you said. And yet, let me just say, I can't tell you how many times over these years men have come up to me and been like, "Oh my God, I never knew this could be what it was, and it wasn't about me." And when they're saying that, there's actually a good bit of pain underneath that, right? We are, all of us want to be wanted by whoever the partner is, right? Like all of us want that. And so when somebody is struggling with sex in the relationship, they're not interested, whatever that might be, like you take it personally. And like I think that this like normalization also helps couples have conversation around this. Like I had a guy tell me at one point, like, I never considered this wasn't about me. Like my marriage literally broke up over countless resentments. But the resentment started to stack when we stopped having sex. When the intimacy left, we became roommates, all of these resentments built. And he's like, and I think if I talk to his ex, her version is, I've always loved him. I loved him. I wanted to be with him. And she didn't know really what was going on because she just never was interested in sex. And like the fact that that could be biological, that could be solvable or treatable with even the toolbox that you have, I think that is unbelievable relief in relationships to know that. Like it's not your fault,
Right.
right? Like it's not your fault. There may be other things you got to work on in that relationship for sure, communication, etc. But some of this is biology.
1000%. I'm going to close with this last patient story because I think you're going to find it really interesting. So I had this patient, she's premenopausal. We got Addyi, wrote for Addyi. I've O-shotted her. I've Mona Lisa'd her. I've pelleted her. I gave her some
Yeah.
vaginal estrogen. I literally gave her everything, right? And nothing was working. Addyi was like, all right, we got it. Did every PA under the sun, wrote all the shit, all the stuff. Okay, good. So I'm in there shooting up her face with some Dysport and some Sculptra, and she tells me, hey, Leah, so was my nurse, was saying you guys have Addyi, we call Addyi Direct now. So what that means is it's a great program that Addyi offers where as practitioners, we can now carry it in the office and we can dispense it and sell it to the patient. So a 90-day supply is $4.99. And she goes, I want to get that. And I go, oh, is insurance not covering anymore? She goes, no, they covered it for like 90 days. And now it's like $800 a month or whatever with her insurance.
Yeah.
I said, okay. She's one of those patients where I'm like, is it working? She's like, I think so. I'm like, oh, what does that mean? You know? And so she says, you know how I know it was working? I'm like, do tell and hold nothing back. She said, yes, because my partner noticed lubrication. And here we all think lubrication down there is estrogen, right? Like, at least that's what I was thinking. No, it was her mind. And he said to her, hey, is everything okay? And she's like, yeah, it's fine. He goes, has anything changed? And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, and you know, he brought it up. And that's great. I'm so glad that he brought it up to her. And she goes, well, now that you mention it, I haven't been taking Addyi because insurance wasn't covering it. And he's like, listen, we'll figure out a way. Like you got to get back on that, because it was such a, the brain helped her lubricate, which then in turn helped her whole sexual experience. So again, it's like the electrical was actually triggering the plumbing. And so like the lubrication piece of it. And so for her, when I said, hey, we actually offer it now, 90 days, $4.99, she's like, oh my God, you're just like the gift that keeps on giving. Like we just, right. So it was one of those things that even I did not realize. And, you know, I talk this every day, all day. And I'm like, well, shit, maybe that is going to be such a key indicator of that's going to work a lot better because this is working a lot better. Yeah. It seems so simple. Yeah. It seems so simple, but it's like, huh, okay, that works.
Totally. And we saw that in clinical trials. You know, we looked at like, we were looking obviously to measure for desire because that's women's most common struggle. But like part of the clinical trial was the quality of sex. And we captured data on every variable that you measure for women, which is arousal, lubrication, orgasm, pain, satisfaction. That's all the female sexual function index domains, including desire. And every one of them improved. And like, again, once I get to that place, like the body responds in a way too, right? It's why one of our 3 outcomes was really satisfaction, like the quality of sex. I love that story so much. And I think what I love is that you carrying it in your practice doesn't allow insurance to gatekeep it from her. Like that is a game that I will just tell you is very difficult. As much as people think that the drug company has something that they can really do to affect that, you would be surprised at how hard that can be with certain medications. You know, when you're not big pharma and you don't negotiate with like huge products and things. So I'm just so, thank you, Lexi. Like I think really even the work you're doing, educating women, normalizing the conversation, letting them have access to things that can actually improve their life. Like, I can't thank you enough for being really a thought leader.
Yeah. Well, I thank you too for fighting the good fight, because there needs to be more women like us who are ready to like stand up and throw some F-bombs and be like, no, we need to do better for our women. Yeah. Where can people find you, Cindy? On social media?
Please follow me at Cindy Pink CEO. Love to have you guys follow me. And you can always find us at Addyi, which is spelled ADDYI.com.
Yep. We'll link all the essentials and all the tags and all the things in the show notes. Well, thank you so much, Cindy.
And all the safety information.
Yeah. It's all that's in there, what's on label and all the things you need to consider. Perfect. Thank you so much. I know you're super busy, and I really appreciate everything that you do for women's health and the industry, and just taking the time to help me continue to educate in podcasting and all those things. And I hope to see you again at another conference by accident, where I accidentally bumped into you before going on stage. I was like, wait, hey, before you leave, I need to get you on my podcast. And you're like,
I'm so glad. That was meant to be, right? Things don't ever happen by chance.
Yeah, very
much.
But
so glad. Thank you, Lexi. Thank you for having me.